Hello, my name's Will Thompson. I'm just going to make a little video to demonstrate an acoustic piano augmentation instrument that I call the Infastain Piano. In essence, what it does, the idea is to infinitely sustain piano notes. As we know, they don't sustain. Normally, they die right away. So I'm going to show you the hardware. I'm going to play a little bit of it, show you the hardware, and then show you the software. But the general idea is that there's a putty mic on the back of the piano that gets the sound from here into this max patch I have on my laptop here. And I have several ways I'm affecting that. I can show you that in a moment. And on the actual soundboard of the piano that you can't see, well, maybe you can see it. That's the soundboard down there. Well, actually, it's here too. Is mounted a tactile transducer. It looks kind of like this. So this is like it's a speaker, but there's no cone. So whatever you attach it to becomes the speaker in essence. So if I were to put it here, this would vibrate and make sound. But with this, I'm attaching it to the soundboard of the piano, and the soundboard of the piano is what lets the piano sound. It's the resonator for the piano. So I'm taking the piano's recordings, very short freeze recordings of the piano in real time, and I'm resounding them through the piano's own vocal cords, if you will, the piano soundboard. So let me let you hear what it sounds like first, and then I'll show you the hardware and the software. Okay, here's my max patch. This is what, let me just play one note. Here's a D. Now, if that note is past a certain amplitude or volume, I have a threshold set up in my max patch that will capture it, and it just did. And now I can turn the volume of that up. This is just a MIDI controller right here. Now you can hear that note sounding through the piano soundboard. Now I can play anything. I can play a whole chord. And it'll play as long as I want it to. It's almost like an organ in effect. The idea with this part of the instrument design is that it would sustain for an unnatural amount of time, but sound natural. Like it sounds like the piano, but a piano would never do this. I can also do things that are more, they don't sound natural. Like, for example, this one. So let me play the same chord again. Wow. Here it is. Now I can pitch shift this. So now everything I play is up, I think it's 2 octaves. Or down 2 octaves. Okay, and here's the natural recording. Ooh, it's feeding back a little bit. That happens sometimes. Sometimes it's nice. C major. Okay, a couple other things I've got set up right now. I have a phaser that allows me to treat it more like a rhythmic thing. So with the MIDI controller, I'm just adjusting the rate it repeats. So if I speed it up enough, it becomes different pitches. And again, these are recordings that I'm playing right now. It just made a little freeze recording. And so now that sound is repeating. Now this sound is E, C. So you can play. This is another polyrhythmic thing. That's not that important right now. What else do I have? That's kind of weird. That's the basic idea. There's a lot of effects I can do with it, but you get the idea. I think I'm going to show you the hardware. All right, let's talk about the hardware. Here we see my piano and my laptop. Let's start with the beginning of the signal flow here. So there is a microphone. You can't see it. It's on the back of the piano on the opposite side of the soundboard. But this is the microphone. This feeds to that microphone that's attached with putty to the back of the soundboard, where it picks up the piano sound and can record, can go through my audio interface into my computer, where the max patch can sample it or record it. This is just a MIDI controller that lets me control various things in the max patch. From there, there's this aux cable on the back of the interface that, if we follow it, takes us here to this small, very small preamplifier. And it's powered. It has speaker cable going to the tactile transducer, or shaker as some people call it. These things, you can get them for very cheap. This one's a little bit more expensive, but some are very affordable. People typically use these to make their cars or their chairs feel like bass heavy music. When it's not really loud, it feels that way. Or for video games and things like that, it feels like things are moving. It's just a very powerful thing. Some of them are actually just bass shakers. That one's a pretty large frequency range. This particular one right here is really a bass shaker, or the other name to call it is a tactile transducer. There's no cone. It attaches to whatever it attaches to, and then this is now the speaker if it were hooked up. And in the case of this instrument, augmentation, the Infastain Piano, the tactile transducer is attached to the piano's soundboard. So the soundboard, the piano becomes the speaker to re-amplify and sound the recordings that were made with the microphone on the back of the piano. All right, you should be able to see my max patch right now. I have this analyzer object, which is receiving input from the microphone, which is on the back of the piano, and it's detecting its amplitude. If the amplitude is past a certain threshold, which I'm setting here, it will cause this to trigger this little thing, which is a freeze object. I did not make this, and it's a lot to go into about how this is working, but it's using the fast Fourier transform to capture sound. The math is kind of complicated. What it's doing is not. It's freezing sound for just one little frame. And so the audio is also going into that. And once it passes a certain threshold, you'll see this little circle here, this bang, you'll see it light up. So let's see if I can get it to do that. Let's see. There it is, you see? That means that it's freezing that note. So now I can pull the fader up and we can hear that note. And that's basically what's happening here. It's not that complicated. And this is how I was getting the rhythmic thing with a phaser. I'm just changing the speed. And see, the pitch shift was over here. have something here that's not related to the freeze, but it's a just a delay. Not sure how well that's coming through. Ooh, feedback, okay. This thing is pretty crazy. It makes a bunch of racket. Okay, so that's what I have going on here. And that's the max patch for the Infastain Piano. There's one more element that I've been using with the system that I'm going to show you, and that does not use max at all. It uses machine learning. This is a little bit more complicated to explain, but here I have the terminal where I can type in commands, and I'm typing in a command here that says SH, that's for shell. It's going to run this shell script, and let's look at the shell script. I'll pull it up. Where is it? Okay, here it is. So these are the things that happen in this script. When I execute that, there's a command line library called FFmpeg that's going to record 20 seconds of audio. It just records me playing the piano for 20 seconds. Then this command will transcribe that audio into a MIDI file, which I could explain, but it would take a long time. This command right here takes the MIDI file and turns it into an audio file. This plays that audio file back. So I record something, it plays it as in a MIDI format. The reason I want it in a MIDI format is because I'm going to use it to generate new material with a Python script that's using machine learning. It generates this command right here, executes this Python script, and we could look at that Python script, but it's pretty hairy. Converts, and then so it has to generate MIDI. That's why I'm saying that. Then it converts all that, what it makes, back into an audio file, and it plays the audio file. So what's happening in this machine learning generation, it records me, and then it tries to make something like what I've done, what I just played on the piano, and the model has been trained on my own piano improvisations. So it's like improvising with myself is the idea. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. So let's try it. Let's run the script. I won't use the Infastain. I'll just run, I'll just use acoustic piano. Okay, so I'm gonna hit enter and it should go. Okay, now it's recording. Recording what I'm playing right now. Okay, now it's transcribing it into a MIDI file, and in a moment it'll play it back. I'm going to hold down the sustain pedal on the piano so we can hear it really well. It might take a moment. There it is. So that's what I just played, basically. Pretty good for a MIDI transcription. Okay. Now it's generating new MIDI information based on what I played and the model I've trained. This is new. It's adding to what I did before. Okay, and it's done. So this is not really working with the Infastain, but it is playing that audio through the piano soundboard. So it is related in a way, although it is not part of this max patch. Anyway. All right, I thought I would take a few minutes and talk about the Python script that's actually doing the machine learning. I'm not going to get super involved because it could take a very long time. If we reference the shell script that I ran, here it is. There's a command here, Python 3, myself and I, .py, and it is right here. This is the script that it runs. So it's a script that runs another script. So there's a lot here. This is all Python stuff, and if you're into this stuff, you can check it out, obviously. This is all using a pretty amazing library and powerful machine learning platform called Magenta, which was created by the Google Brain team. It's for making art with machine learning, which has not been happening a lot until very recently, in the past like 6 or 7 years. So Magenta, import Magenta. We're not going to go through all this stuff, but I'm going to show you what parameters I'm tweaking. So let me just go down here. Okay. So this is the command to generate without getting too far into Python. Bundle name, this is represents the model that was trained. So when I made this piece, I trained a model on hours and hours of audio recordings of myself playing the piano, improvising piano. And when I say recordings, I mean MIDI recordings. I had to record audio and then convert that into a MIDI file format. And so that allowed me to train a MIDI file model, a model that's going to try and imitate what it is that I'm doing when I'm playing the piano. And so it does that in a way. This wadiv ig2.mag is the bundle file that points to the training data. Okay. Total lengths and steps. Well, first of all, MIDI file name. This is what it's going to create. This is the name of the MIDI file that will be played in the other shell script. Total steps, 512. In this case, a step relates to a 16th note. So there are 16 per measure. Okay, this is where it's pretty interesting. The primer here, this file right here, is the file that I recorded in the shell script in the very beginning of the piece. So it's using the MIDI recording that was made from live piano performance as a primer, and the primer basically is something that the model will try and imitate when it generates a new MIDI file. So this is the new MIDI file that will be generated based on the primer. The primer is what I was playing in the moment on the piano. Condition on primer, true. That means try and use what it's giving you to make something new. Inject primer during generation is true. You might have noticed that in addition to new material, it played what was already recorded and added stuff around it and then made stuff in addition to it that happens after that. So this is just a really rough introduction to what's going on here. If you want to look up more, just do a Google search for Magenta and machine learning, and you'll find there's a lot out there that's more accessible than this. It's not all going to be just Python file. But all right, thank you very much.